Welcome everybody to the 3-word game. My name is George Mokwena. I am your host, and I genuinely believe that sometimes we get too complicated with how we analyze these teams. I can break down all 16 teams in just 3 words, and that is what we're going to do. Let's get into it. Just stay up. All Magesi need to do is focus on staying in the PSL and continuing on the proud tradition of NFD teams that have won the NFD and come into the PSL to do very well. You think about your Polokwanes, you think about your Chippas, you may even think about teams like your Marawa Swallows that finished very high up in their first seasons in the PSL. I mean, they already have a coach that is very experienced in this top league. So that is all they need to do. Was there improvement? New sponsors telling us about changing the game, 100 million, wanting to go look for A-class coaches. Fired Coach Kanu and brought in Coach Brakkies, Brandon Truter. And look, I'm not going to try to say that Coach Brakkies is a bad coach, but from what they were telling us they were going to do, we didn't necessarily get that from the changes that they made, and they haven't really spent that money all that well. So let's see if this season anything changes. Richards Bay has to prove to us that they weren't just lying, and that they actually have a team that can get themselves out of that 15th spot. Third time lucky. Marumo Gallants is no stranger to the league. They were here, they went to the semi-finals of the CAF Confed, and then they tanked and went under. They finished last season 11th in the NFD, and now they bought Marawa Swallows' status to come back into the league, and they came back with a familiar face that is Dan Dance Malisela. Now, if we know anything about their story, Dan Dance doesn't stay there long. So is it a case of third time lucky, and can Marumo Gallants go with Dan Dance, keep him there, and make sure that there's some continuity in that team, and maybe, just maybe, make it into a top 8 spot? Sorry to interrupt this video, but I need a little bit of your help. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can probably see my subscribe account. And if you can, I'd be very grateful if you would subscribe. That is actually the best way to support this channel, because the bigger that number is, the better it looks to potential guests and other brands and companies that I will approach for sponsorship. It may seem like a very small thing to ask for, but it actually helps with all of this. Thank you very much. Let's get back to the video. Must avoid relegation. It's not easy for Royal AM. Royal AM is currently in a transfer ban, which means that for the past couple of windows, they haven't been able to bring in any players. And now John Maduka is faced with the task of again trying to take a rinky-dink makeshift team and keep it up. Last season, he got a little bit lucky that Cape Town Spurs was so bad and that Richards Bay was so bad. But can Coach Maduka do what he did the first season he took over at Royal AM when they merged, and maybe get us a top 3, top 5 finish? Take the next step. Chippa United needs to take the next step. For over 10 years, Chippa has been in the league, chopping and changing coaches, going from philosophy to philosophy to philosophy. What they need to do this season is to give Coach Kopo a chance to take this team forward. And what I want to see from Chippa is not necessarily a high finish, but can you move away from the bottom of the league? Can you move yourselves into maybe a top 8 position so that we can show that all of that experience and Ubab Chippa Pengesi turning over a new leaf and not being as angry can grant them anything? No more talk. Hey, Babzungu, we love him. He spent a lot in the league, but it's been all talk for some years now. Ever since Benny finished second and put them into African competition, they haven't been able to get back to that level. And for all of the money, and for all of the sponsors, and for all of the announcements, and for all of the coaching changes, we need this season to see that when you guys went and fetched Pablo Franco Martin, it wasn't just for him to become a placeholder coach. When you went and fetched a UEFA license holder, a former assistant coach of Real Madrid, what would that mean for South African football? And so far, it hasn't meant much. He's been in the bottom. Let's see if he's also under pressure. Let's see if he can also get this team maybe into a top 6. Needs a trophy. Guys, do you know how long 10 years is? 10 years is so long that we don't call it 10 years, we call it a decade. We change words. This is what Kaizer Chiefs faces. If they don't do something this season, if they don't win, they will have 10 years full without a trophy. So for me, I'm not looking for a number 2 finish. I'm not looking for a 3 or a 4th place. I'm looking for Coach Nabi to win a trophy. The ones that are left is the Nedbank Cup and also the Carling Knockout. So one of those 2 trophies have to find their way back to Naturena so we can get a taste of winning and build on top of that. I think Chiefs has done a lot of good work. in this off-season. They've done a lot of movements, and maybe Coach Nabi is the guy. But at the end of the day, you have 10 years of pressure on top of your head, and maybe one trophy relieves it. Are they serious? Guys, Golden Arrows is one of the most experienced teams in the league. Teams that have been in every single season, Mamelodi Sundowns, Orlando Pirates, Kaizer Chiefs, SuperSport, and Bidvest, which is now gone, right? They had been in every single season since the new era of the PSL began. Golden Arrows is right below that. So, if Mamelodi Sundowns has a league, Kaizer Chiefs has a bunch of trophies, we know what Orlando Pirates has been doing in their time, we know what SuperSport did at their peak with their 3 wins in a row, their 3 league wins in a row. When are we going to get the same type of thing from Golden Arrows? And is Mabuti Kenyeza the guy that can take arrows into that space? With all due respect to Mamatu Madlala, we need to see something from one of our most storied teams, and we've been waiting for something to happen ever since that MTN8 win all those years ago under Coach Manqoba Mngqithi. We need arrows to stand up, and it might not be a trophy this season, but can you take over from a Sekhukhune? Can you take over from Polokwane? Can you take over from a Cape Town City? These are the questions we have for Golden Arrows. Just another team. Polokwane City is a very interesting team. It's a team that I don't feel we have expectations for. It's a team I feel we just watch. We don't necessarily see it as a real contender. We don't even see it as a bad team. It's just a middle of the road team that, just exists. I'm sure if I said to you guys, what does Phuti Mohafe look like, the coach of Polokwane City, a lot of you wouldn't be able to point them out. So for me, this season, we need to start seeing an identity from Polokwane City. We need to start seeing them, forge a lane from themselves. They've got the players like Apolis. Apolis plays for that team until further notice. So I want to see them go from position 8 back to a position 5 that Coach Siema had them at when he was still there. That is what I expect for this season. Shoot your shot. SuperSport United is a very funny team. SuperSport United is one of the most consistent teams we've had in the PSL, but they've been dying of the same complaints. Players being sold, they make it into the top 4, then they have to go play African games, the travel kills them. This season, they don't have any African games. This season, they have to play straight. There's no other distractions. Because the other part is that Pirates, is that Stellenbosch, is that Sekhukhune United are going to be playing African games for the first time in their histories. And SuperSport knows quite well what that does to teams. So I'm expecting SuperSport to have a bounce back here and to make sure that they get back into the places where they were as the team that has won the league before. One of the few teams other than the big 3 that has won the league before is the SuperSport team, and they need to get back to that level. That's what I want from them this season. Do licenses matter? Tim Sugazi was all over the place telling us about UEFA Pro license holders. He said Sid Ramovic is cooking something, man. Their TS Galaxy is doing something. Now we're a couple of years in and we haven't seen the cooking of the something amount to anything. We need to see whether these UEFA licenses actually mean anything or if they're just really nice decorations that teams can point at and say, look at what we did. Sid Ramovic, yes, to his credit, got to a final of the Carling Knockout last season to be beaten by Stellenbosch. But we need more of those things. We need more to justify why these teams are going overseas and fetching these coaches to come this side. And these coaches have to show that they actually have value in our league. So for me, I'm looking for TS Galaxy to move from a 6th place team and go into the African spots. I want to see Sid Ramovic take Abu Puso Ditejane into Africa next season, or the season after this one, so that we can have another premier team going up. So that is what I expect from TS Galaxy. It's about time. Cape Town City, a team that we all speak about having the most wonderful talent, having an experienced coach in Coach Tinkler, doing relatively well over the years. I mean, Benny did well, Coach Tinkler did well early. But we've been waiting for that team to become a championship team. We've been waiting for that team to become a team that goes into Africa often. We've been waiting, essentially, for Coach Tinkler to become one of the best coaches in the league as a South African coach. But up to this point, we haven't seen much from them. So Cape Town City, we know you just lost to Khanye Samayo. We know that it's been a little bit rough for you guys over these years. But Rhodes, Mukojo, and Chiweza have to give you something. So Cape Town City, for me, has to make it at the very least into third spot, owing to the fact, like I mentioned, that Stellenbosch are going to Africa. Can Siema repeat? Coach Siema is one of my favorite coaches. Coach Siema did wonders at Polokwane City for the short time that he had them. And then he went and did wonders at idiskitv when he was hired, I believe, with 4 months left of the season last year, getting them into Africa. He was then fired and taken out of the game to only be rehired later when the European coach that was brought in by idiskitv didn't work out. What I want from Usiema is to prove that he's not a one-hit wonder, one-season wonder, to prove that South African coaches can go and be consistent. A lot of our coaches have done incredibly well in a season. You know, a lot of the coaches that have been based here, your John Madukas did very well when he took over Royal AM when the merger happened. You know, you look at the Tentens, who's won a Nedbank Cup before, but hasn't moved forward. Now we need guys like Abo Siema to stand up and show that they can do it multiple seasons. I would expect and I want idiskitv to at the very least stay exactly where they are. They're about to go get African experience, and that can go a very long way. So Coach Siema, could you please make sure that this idiskitv team doesn't drop? Prove us wrong. Stellies sells all of their players. Stellies sells their stars, and a lot of us have said that this is what makes them lose games. This is what makes them not be able to, kick forward. Last season, they won the Carling Knockout, which is incredible. Steve Barker has been in charge of the team for more than 200 games, and he finally got that trophy. They finally got to Africa. Now we want them to move forward. And this season is more about Stellenbosch proving that this wasn't a once-in-a-lifetime thing, that they can go to Africa, they can play in the league, they can be competitive in the Cups, all while selling the players. A decision, a thing that we might not agree with. But if Coach Barker can keep them at number 2, can maybe jump Pirates, then I think that's going to be a good thing for South African football as a whole. So Stellenbosch, your homework is Champions League for this season. No more chances. When last did Pirates win the league, guys? I see the trophies and all of that stuff, but when did Pirates hold the league in their hands? It's no good being the second best team in the league if the second best means that you're 23 points, 19 points, 16 points behind Mamelodi Sundowns. This is the season where Pirates needs to kick on. They've got the quality, they've got the coaching, they've got the domestic trophies in their pockets. But now you need to do something big, especially acknowledging that this might be Jose Rivero's last season in charge of Pirates. They have to find a consistency. So they need to turn that number 2 into number 1, seeing as Sundowns looks to be a little bit shaky themselves. That is what Pirates needs to do. In the terms of the Champions League, I'm not expecting too much from them. But in the league, you have to go and win it. Not try, not challenge. You have to go and win it. Is it over? Mamelodi Sundowns is at the weirdest place as a team. Coach Mangoba is the last of Pitso's line. The last time Mamelodi Sundowns will have access to a coach that has been at Mamelodi Sundowns for more than 10 years. From this point onwards, after Mangoba, you're going to have to go and find people from outside. Abo Fleming will have to create a new culture at Mamelodi Sundowns, and things are going to have to change. This season becomes important because while you're going through change, the best thing you can do for yourself is maintain what you have. Do I believe that they'll go almost invincible like they did last season? I don't believe it. Do I believe that they'll get into the semi-finals? No. But the biggest thing that Mamelodi Sundowns has to show us, and in particular Mangoba Mngqithi, they have to show us that things have not changed. That they are still the top tier club that they were when Coach Rulani stepped out. And Mangoba in particular has a lot of convincing to do. He's one of the most experienced coaches in the league. He's one of the guys that have been part and parcel of Mamelodi Sundowns' success. But can he show us that he's not just a caretaker who's holding the ropes for now? That he can actually be a world-class coach, the likes of Rulani, the likes of other African coaches, so we can take him a lot seriously than I feel we are right now. Mamelodi Sundowns has to win the league and has to get to the final of the Champions League. That is the homework for Mamelodi Sundowns. Domestically, Forget about the trophies. You have one goal and one goal only, as your management said in the statement when they released Rulani. That has been the 3-word game. We're going to be doing this every week after every match day so that we can just tell where these teams are at that current moment. If you like what you see, don't forget to press the subscribe button and share the videos, man. Help us grow. This show will be back next week.